My husband drugged me every single night. I thought he was caring. Until the evening I pretended to swallow the pills and stayed awake. At 2 a.m., he slipped out of our bedroom, whispering like I was already gone. I followed him downstairs and saw something that destroyed every memory of our marriage. If you're watching this, please like this video, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I need the world to hear what really happened when I stopped trusting the man I slept beside. I used to believe my marriage was the safest place in my life. Even now, saying that out loud feels like confessing to a version of myself that no longer exists. A woman who trusted without hesitation and slept beside a man she didn't know at all. Back then, I thought Devin was a gift, steady, calm, the kind of husband other women said they wished they had. We lived in a quiet Atlanta neighborhood full of dog walkers, kids on bikes, and families grilling on weekends. Our house had warm lights, hardwood floors, Devin refinished himself, and a kitchen he insisted on renovating because he wanted me to have a space that makes you happy. I loved him for that, or I thought I did. I was 34, a high school English teacher, coming home every afternoon, exhausted but fulfilled. And Devin was always there, working from his home office. He'd meet me at the door, kiss my forehead, take my bag off my shoulder, ask about my students. It felt like stability. It felt like safety. Some evenings we cooked together, some nights he did it all himself. And every night, every single night, he ended the routine the exact same way. He'd bring me a vitamin with a glass of water, sit on the edge of the bed, and wait until I swallowed it. He'd smile, that soft, warm smile that used to melt me, and whisper, "Gotta keep you healthy." I never questioned it. Why would I? Married people look out for each other. That was what I believed. I didn't know yet that love can be the easiest disguise for control, and trust can be the easiest doorway into destruction. When I look back now, I don't remember the first night things felt off. It wasn't one moment, it was a slow sinking, like stepping into water that rises so gradually you don't realize you're drowning until it's above your mouth. At first, I slept deeply and woke up rested. At least that's what I told myself. Then little things changed. I couldn't remember conversations I supposedly had. Devin would say, "Remember, babe? You told me we should redo the living room." Or, "You said you wanted to visit your sister next month." And I would smile, confused but trying to trust my own voice less than his certainty. Maybe I did say those things. Maybe I forgot. Teaching was stressful, that's what he said, and Devin always sounded so reasonable. Over time, I started waking up exhausted, my body heavy, my thoughts foggy. I'd stand in front of my class and lose my train of thought mid-sentence. I'd forget what story we were analyzing. I'd stare at the board like I'd never seen the words before. My students noticed before I did. "Are you okay, Miss Reed?" one girl asked, wide-eyed in a way that made something inside me twist. I laughed it off. Teachers get tired, that's normal. But the tiredness wasn't normal. Neither were the bruises. Small ones at first along my upper arms, like fingertip marks. I assumed I bumped into something while half asleep. Devin suggested I might be anemic. He even scheduled a doctor's appointment for me, sat in the waiting room like the devoted husband everyone believed he was. My tests came back normal. The doctor gently suggested anxiety. Devin latched onto that immediately, nodding like he'd just been proven right. "Teaching takes a toll," he said. "She works so hard. I keep telling her to rest more." It made me feel like a problem he was patiently managing. But what else could I do except trust him? What else do wives do? Then there were the nights I'd go to sleep in one outfit and wake up in another. Usually something I barely remembered owning. I asked Devin once why I'd changed. He didn't even look up from his laptop when he answered, "You changed in the middle of the night. You were half asleep. You probably forgot." That explanation sat wrong in my stomach, but I nodded. I didn't have another explanation. And when you can't trust your memory, you cling to whatever sounds stable. Devin always sounded stable. I never imagined stability could be a weapon. I never imagined safety could be staged. But the worst part, the part that still makes my pulse lurch, is how much I loved him through all of it. How fully I believed he was the one protecting me, not the one hurting me. How easy it was to hand him my trust like a key. "You work so hard," he'd say, while handing me the nightly vitamin, brushing my hair behind my ear like he adored me. "Let me take care of you." And I let him. God, I let him. Every night I swallowed what he gave me. Every night I surrendered my body to sleep I didn't understand. Every night I let him close the door on a reality I couldn't see. But trust is dangerous, deadly, even. And the night I stopped swallowing the pill, the night I pretended to drift into the darkness he'd created for me, was the night I finally saw the truth crawling inside my marriage like rot under paint. I didn't know it yet, but that decision would shatter everything, every memory, every kiss, every quiet dinner, every I love you. Because love was never what he gave me. Control was, and soon I would see exactly what he'd been doing to me while I slept. I don't know exactly when the unraveling began. People think horror arrives like a scream, a crash, a sudden moment that splits your life into before and after. But mine didn't. Mine arrived like a whisper, like a soft shift in the air that I kept brushing off because brushing it off was easier than facing the feeling growing inside me. The feeling that something was deeply wrong with my own mind. Before the pills, I trusted my memory. I trusted myself. I was sharp. I taught entire units from memory, recited passages from books I loved, remembered every birthday, every meeting, every detail of my students' lives. But slowly, the edges of my days blurred. I started noticing gaps, tiny holes at first, the kind you tell yourself are normal. Stress, exhaustion, burnout. That's what Devin always said. Babe, you never stop, he'd remind me. Of course you're tired. And God, that sounded so reasonable. I clung to his reasons as if they were life rafts because the alternative that something inside me was slipping terrified me too much to face. But the gaps kept spreading. I would mention wanting to visit my sister, and Devin would smile, confused, and say, "We talked about that yesterday, remember?" I didn't. I didn't remember anything about it. Sometimes, he'd reference whole conversations, plans, choices, decisions he swore we made together. I'd stare at him, trying to pull the memories out of the fog, feeling stupid, defective, weak. I'd never felt weak before. Then the fatigue came, the kind of exhaustion that lives in your bones. I'd sleep 9, 10 hours and still drag myself through the morning like I was wading through molasses. I'd stand in front of my class mid-lecture and feel my mind flatline, like someone had unplugged me. Words I knew by heart vanished. Sentences collapsed halfway through. My students looked at me with wide, worried eyes. "Are you okay, Miss Reed?" I remember forcing a smile, even while panic crawled up my throat. I didn't feel okay. I felt like I was dissolving. And every time I tried to talk to Devin, he made it make sense. He always had an answer. "Teaching is brutal," he'd say, rubbing my back. "You're overworking yourself. Let me help." The way he said it made me feel safe, or controlled. I didn't know the difference yet. Then came the clothes. I'd go to sleep in an old t-shirt and wake up in a silky nightgown I didn't remember putting on. Sometimes I wasn't even sure I owned it. The first time I noticed, I laughed. I thought maybe I'd been half asleep and changed because I got hot. But it kept happening. Night after night. Different shirts, different shorts, different nightgowns. Each time, Devin had an explanation ready. "You changed in the night," he'd say casually, brushing past me in the kitchen. "You were basically sleepwalking. You probably just forgot." He made it sound so harmless, so normal. I wanted to believe him so badly that I did. I kept telling myself that if something were truly wrong, someone else would have noticed. And then, someone did. My best friend. The one person who knows me better than anyone except, I thought, my husband. It was a Tuesday afternoon, one of those rare planning periods when I wasn't drowning in grading. My phone buzzed, and when I answered, Kesha didn't even say hello. "Joss, what's going on with you?" Her voice was sharp with concern. "You didn't look right last weekend. You were off." "Off how?" I remember whispering, my stomach tightening. "Like you were sedated," she said. "Your eyes looked weird. You moved slow. You weren't yourself. I swear, it was like you were on something." I froze. For a moment, I actually looked around the empty classroom, like someone else could overhear the truth forming in my chest. "I'm not on anything," I told her. "Just vitamins. And the anxiety medication the doctor suggested." The second I said it, something cold slid down my spine. Because when had I started needing medication? When had my life become something that required chemicals just to function? Kesha's silence was heavy. "Jasmine," she finally said, "this isn't you." And I knew she was right. Something was happening to me, but I didn't know what. Or maybe I didn't want to know. I kept replaying the past weeks in my mind, every moment I'd woken up confused, every bruise I couldn't explain, every time Devin insisted I take my pills, even when I said I wasn't feeling well. "You need your vitamins," he'd say, voice firm in a way that made me feel like a child. He would stand there and watch until I swallowed. And then came the drawer. God, that drawer. The day I found it was the day my doubt grew teeth. I came home early after a teacher meeting was canceled. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of Devin's computer. His office door was half open, which was strange. He normally kept it shut during work hours. I called his name softly, stepped inside, and froze. The bottom desk drawer had a physical lock on it. An actual silver lock, brand new, shining like it was mocking me. In 2 years of marriage, that drawer had never been locked. "Devin?" I asked when he walked in, keeping my voice steady. "Since when do you lock this?" He barely looked up from his phone. "Oh, client security stuff," he said. "New protocols. Very normal." He kissed my cheek, asked what I wanted for dinner, and walked out like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something huge. Because seeing that lock felt like watching a mask slip. I didn't know what he was hiding, but I knew he was hiding something. And when someone controls your sleep, your memory, your body, and now a locked part of your home, your fear begins to bloom into something you can't ignore anymore. That night, when Devin brought me the pill with his usual soft smile, something in my chest twisted. A warning siren. A voice whispering, "Don't swallow." I should have listened sooner. I should have listened months ago. But the truth is, I wasn't ready to know what was behind all the darkness creeping into my life. Not yet. I had no idea that the real nightmare hadn't even begun. I kept telling myself it was stress. Stress explained a lot. Forgetfulness, exhaustion, irritability, even waking up in different clothes. Teachers burned out all the time. That was the story I clung to, because it was easier than admitting I felt like I was slipping out of my own life. But the truth was, the pieces weren't adding up anymore. They were piling up, and I kept pretending not to see them. I remember one morning standing in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at the faint purple marks on my upper arm. They were small, shaped almost like the curve of someone's fingertips. I touched them lightly and winced. Devin walked in behind me, toothbrush in hand. "What's that?" he asked, his voice laced with concern so perfect it felt rehearsed. "I don't know," I said. "It kind of looks like—" I couldn't finish the sentence. His reflection met mine, and he offered a sympathetic half smile. "Babe, you bruise so easily. You probably bumped into something. Teaching desks, tables, doors, anything." I wanted to believe him, because the alternative was too frightening. "I guess," I said, "but I don't remember hitting anything." "That's the stress," he replied immediately. "You're too distracted. And honestly, Joss, you barely sleep well lately. You need rest." That sentence echoed in my head all day. I did sleep, hours and hours. But I always woke up feeling dead inside, like something had drained me while I slept. The next day at school was one of the worst. I stood in front of my juniors discussing The Great Gatsby, and mid-sentence, my mind blanked so abruptly, the room spun. The students stared at me expectantly. A few exchanged glances. My heart pounded. I gripped the podium like it was the only thing keeping me upright. "Miss Reed?" a girl asked. "Are you okay?" No, I wasn't okay, but I forced a smile. "Just a little tired," I lied. Every day, that lie got heavier. And then something else started happening, something I told myself had to be my imagination. Until it wasn't. Devin began finishing my sentences, not in a romantic, we're soulmates way, but in a calculating, almost rehearsed way. He always knew what I was going to say, what I meant, what I remembered earlier. It felt like he was gently rewriting reality around me, and I was too foggy to catch it, too foggy to fight it. Then came the doctor's appointment. Devin insisted on going with me, insisted on sitting in the waiting room like a supportive husband. The blood tests came back normal. "She's probably anxious," the doctor said. Devin immediately leaned forward, nodding. "Exactly what I thought," he replied. "She works so hard. She's been overwhelmed." He sounded so sincere I almost believed it myself. The doctor prescribed something mild, and Devin picked up the medication from the pharmacy before I even got back to the car. That night, he placed the vitamin in one hand and the new pill in the other. I looked at him, feeling suddenly cornered by my own confusion. "Are you sure this is necessary?" I asked. He cupped my face with both hands. "Babe, I love you. I just want you to feel like you again." That line should have comforted me, but instead, it hollowed me out, because I didn't feel like me anymore, and I didn't know why. The next morning, I found another bruise. Darker, higher on my arm. A little sore. I didn't say anything. I just stared at it for the longest time. Then at school, Keisha called. She never calls during lunch unless something's wrong. The moment I picked up, her voice cracked with worry. "Jas, seriously, what's going on with you? You looked, I don't know, not like yourself last weekend. Like you weren't fully there." I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean? You seemed drugged," she whispered. The word hit me like cold water. "Your eyes were unfocused. Your speech was slow. You kept zoning out. Did your doctor put you on something new?" "Not really," I said, but the lie tasted bitter. Vitamins, anxiety pills, and something else I couldn't name. Something I never questioned. "Jasmine," she said more firmly, "this isn't you. I know you. Something's wrong." I almost told her. I almost said everything. But the moment I opened my mouth, a strange guilt washed over me, like talking about Devin was betraying him, like doubting him was wrong. That terrified me more than anything. When I got home that day, his office door was open again, the bottom drawer locked. Not with a digital password, but a physical, old-fashioned lock you'd see on filing cabinets from the 90 seconds. I crouched in front of it, staring at it like it held the truth to every nightmare I couldn't remember. My heart was racing when Devin walked in. "What are you doing?" he asked lightly. Too lightly. I was just looking for a pen." He didn't break his smile. "Pens are in the top drawer, babe." I nodded, stepped away. But as he closed the drawer, his eyes flicked to mine just for a fraction of a second. And in that moment, I saw something cold, something calculating, something dangerous, something I had never seen in the man I married. That night, when he handed me the pill, the water, the soft smile, the tender forehead kiss, something inside me snapped awake. A tiny voice whispered, "Don't swallow." And for the first time in months, I listened. It wasn't courage. It wasn't clarity. It was survival, raw and instinctive, because whether I understood it or not, my body knew I was in danger, real danger. And the person I was sleeping next to, the man who told me he loved me every night, might not be the man I thought he was at all. The night everything shifted didn't come with warning. It came quietly, like every night before Devin handing me the pill with that soft, practiced smile, brushing his thumb along my cheekbone like he treasured me. I slipped it into my mouth, felt the familiar bitterness on my tongue, and pretended to swallow. He watched me. He always watched. When I tilted my head back and exhaled, he relaxed. "Good girl," he whispered words that once felt loving but now felt possessive. Too possessive. He kissed my forehead, turned off the lamp, and climbed into bed beside me. For a moment, lying there in the dark, I wondered if I could be wrong about everything. If maybe this was all in my head, stress, exhaustion, anxiety, whatever combination the doctor had suggested. For a moment, I wanted so desperately to believe nothing terrible was happening. But then the warmth spread through my limbs, a heaviness, a slow, sinking pull toward unconsciousness. Even though the pill was hidden in my cheek, my body responded like it knew the routine, like it expected to collapse, like it had been trained. My breath grew shallow. My eyelids drooped. I bit the inside of my lip until it bled just to stay alert. My thoughts drifted into a fog, but I forced myself to keep breathing evenly, mimicking sleep. At some point, minutes, maybe hours later, I felt him shift beside me. The mattress dipped. His weight moved carefully, slowly, as though he didn't want to disturb me. I kept my body limp, kept my breaths deep and steady. I heard the soft click of him opening the bedroom door, his footsteps down the hallway. Silence. I counted to 60, then another 60. And just when I thought he'd gone downstairs or into his office, I heard it, his whisper, his voice, low and urgent, floating from the hallway just outside the bedroom. My body went cold. "Tuesday night," he murmured. "Yeah, same rate as before." My heart thrashed so loudly I thought it would betray me. I froze, terrified to move. "She'll be completely out," Devin continued. "You won't have to worry, she never wakes up." A beat of silence followed. My ears strained to catch the other voice, but I could only hear Devin's. His tone was calm, confident, practiced. "Don't worry," he repeated. "I've done this for months. She never remembers anything. My blood iced, every bruise, every memory gap. Every morning I woke up in different clothes. Every moment I'd felt trapped inside someone else's life. It all clicked together with a brutality that stole my breath. I wanted to scream, to sit up, to demand answers. But my body wouldn't move. Even though I hadn't swallowed the pill, the psychological weight of months of sedation pressed down on me like a command. Stay still, stay quiet, stay powerless. My muscles trembled under the effort of pretending to be unconscious. My fingers twitched uselessly against the sheets. For a moment, I thought I might faint for real. My own husband, my partner, my supposed protector, was arranging something involving me being completely out. Something that required a rate. Something that depended on my inability to wake up. The realization hit me so hard, tears pricked my eyes. But I couldn't blink. Couldn't risk it. Couldn't breathe too sharply. I was trapped inside my own body, listening to the man I loved talk about me like I was an object. A commodity. A product. All right, Devin whispered after a moment. Same place, same time. Then I heard the soft tap of his fingertip ending the call. Silence. For a moment, I hoped he'd leave the house, that I'd have time to get up, grab my keys, run. But instead his footsteps returned, slow, careful, coming back toward me. Panic surged through my chest. He opened the bedroom door. I squeezed my eyes tighter, even though they were already fully closed. I felt the mattress shift as he sat beside me again, felt his fingers gently brush my cheek, testing for signs of consciousness. Fast asleep, he whispered. Just the way I need you. Rage and terror collided in my chest. It took every ounce of willpower not to jerk away from his touch, not to slap his hand off my face. But I couldn't, not yet. Not when I didn't know what he planned next. He sat there for a long time, simply watching me, breathing calmly, as though everything about this was normal. Then he finally lay down, pulled the blanket over himself, and drifted into steady, slow breaths. But I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I stayed frozen, my body locked between instinct and horror, waiting for morning like it might save me. When sunlight finally bled through the curtains, Devin woke before I did. At least he thought he did. He nudged me gently. Morning, beautiful, he whispered, kissing my forehead. I forced my eyes open, blinking with feigned confusion. You slept so deeply, he added with a satisfied smile. And in that moment, looking into the eyes of the man who believed he owned my unconsciousness, something shattered inside me. Not fear, not confusion, something colder, sharper, a knowledge. This man is not my husband, he is a threat. Breakfast? He asked lightly, already swinging his legs out of bed. I nodded mechanically. He left the room humming softly, like he hadn't orchestrated a nightmare while I lay in the dark. I sat up slowly, forcing my breathing to steady, my vision to clear. My hands trembled violently, my heart pounded against my ribs. Because now, I knew without question that I couldn't trust him. I couldn't confront him. I couldn't even let him guess I knew. If I did, I wouldn't make it out of that house. And as I stared at the doorway he'd just walked through, one thought swallowed me whole. I needed proof. Hard proof. Proof no one could deny. Proof strong enough to destroy him before he destroyed me. And I had no idea yet just how monstrous the truth would become. The morning after that phone call, I moved like a ghost through my own house. Every surface felt contaminated, every memory poisoned by what I'd heard. Devin hummed in the kitchen, scrambling eggs like nothing in the world was wrong, like he hadn't whispered about me being completely out just hours earlier. I sat at the counter, forcing the mug in my hands to stay steady. Rough night? He asked, sliding a plate in front of me. You were knocked out cold. My stomach twisted. I managed a small laugh. Guess I really needed the sleep. He smiled warmly, leaned over, kissed my temple. I held still, heart pounding, trying not to flinch. I spent the rest of the day at school barely functioning. My students' voices sounded muffled. My own words felt like they belonged to someone else. During lunch, I locked myself in the staff bathroom, gripping the sink, staring at the pale, strained reflection of a woman who no longer knew where her life ended and Devin's control began. I texted Kesha, I think something's wrong. She called instantly, but I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't ready to say out loud what was happening, because once I said it, it would become real in a way I wasn't prepared to face. When I got home, Devon greeted me at the door with his usual warmth. "Long day?" he asked, kissing my cheek. "You look tired." I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a lot going on." He didn't press. He never pressed anymore, not because he wasn't interested, but because he didn't need to. He had total control of the version of me he wanted, every night, and I had let him. That night, I watched him prepare the pill. He shook it into his palm, set it on my nightstand like always. The tiny capsule looked harmless, just a vitamin, just a wellness boost, just another part of our ritual. But now, it looked like the weapon it was. "Ready for bed?" he asked gently. My throat tightened. If I didn't take it, he'd notice. If I pretended to swallow again, he might check. He had checked before. He had made me open my mouth like a child being inspected. I nodded. Yeah. The moment he stepped out to brush his teeth, I grabbed the pill, slipped it under my tongue, and practiced keeping my mouth relaxed, my breathing even. When he came back, he sat beside me again, watching, waiting. I tilted my head back and took a long sip of water, swallowing loudly enough to be convincing. When I lowered the glass, he smiled. Good. He leaned in, kissed my forehead so tender, so gentle, so unbearably false. I wanted to scream. I didn't. I smiled. And when he finally lay down beside me, I kept perfectly still until his breathing settled into the slow rhythm of sleep. Then I slid the pill from under my tongue and tucked it into the sleeve of my shirt until I could safely dispose of it. All night, I lay awake replaying that phone call in my head. Same rate as before. She'll be completely out. She never wakes up. I've done this for months. Every word was a crack in the foundation of my reality. He wasn't drugging me once or twice out of panic or stress. He wasn't making a mistake. This was organized, repeated, planned, and he wasn't working alone. Someone else, maybe multiple someone else's, had been involved. But involved in what? What was happening after I lost consciousness? What had he done? What had he let others do? My mind spiraled with possibilities so horrific I couldn't hold on to one long enough before the next slammed into me. The bruises, the clothes, the soreness I had ignored, the gaps in time. My throat tightened, bile rising up as my thoughts chased themselves in circles. By morning, I felt hollowed out, yet I couldn't show it, couldn't let him see even a flicker of change. If he suspected I knew anything, he'd shut everything down before I had proof. And without proof, who would believe me? A woman with memory gaps and anxiety pills? A husband with a spotless reputation and a perfectly reasonable vitamin routine? I needed evidence. Something undeniable. Something that would speak louder than his lies. The opportunity came faster than I expected. 2 nights later, after dinner, Devon got a call and stepped onto the back porch to take it. I had no intention of listening until I heard my name. Not overheard quietly, heard clearly, heard intentionally. "I'm managing her," he said. "She's compliant. Don't worry." My blood ran cold. I crept closer to the glass door, heart hammering in my chest. "Tomorrow night should work," he continued. "As long as she takes it. She always takes it." He paused, listening. Then, "Yeah, same structure as last time." Last time, the words scraped against my skin. Whatever was happening, it had happened before, multiple times, and I had no memory of any of it. When Devon came back inside, he smiled at me like he hadn't just signed away my safety in a single phone call. "Want ice cream?" he asked casually. I nodded, numb. Later that night, while he showered, I stepped into his office again. The locked drawer gleamed like an accusation. I gripped the handle, pulling, even though I knew it wouldn't move. I checked behind books, under stacks of paper, inside pencil cups looking for a key, a clue, a crack in his mask. Nothing. Everything in that room felt sterile, staged, curated, except the drawer. The drawer buzzed with danger. I didn't need it opened to know something inside would confirm every fear I had. But confirmation wouldn't come from breaking into it. Not yet. Not without him noticing. Not without risking everything. I needed a different strategy. Something that would expose the truth without tipping him off. And slowly, a plan formed, terrifying, risky, but the only option I had left. If he wanted me unconscious so badly, then I needed to see what he did while I was unconscious. But to do that, I had to let him think nothing had changed. I had to keep swallowing or pretending to swallow every night. I had to keep smiling. I had to keep living beside the man who was destroying me. I had to stay awake in a house designed to keep me asleep. I had to survive long enough to catch him. And that meant I had to watch him even more closely than he watched me. That night, as he slid into bed beside me and wrapped an arm around my waist, I lay perfectly still, my mind racing ahead. Tomorrow, I promised myself. Tomorrow I would start gathering proof. Tomorrow I would take back even the smallest piece of the life he had stolen from me. Tomorrow I would stop being prey. I just didn't know yet that the truth I was preparing to face would be far worse than anything my imagination had tried to warn me about. I didn't sleep the night after I heard him on the porch. I lay there pretending to drift in and out, pretending to stretch, pretending to sigh the way I normally did before the pills took over. Inside, though, everything inside me vibrated with a cold, electric panic. He had a plan, a schedule, a pattern. He wasn't improvising, he was organizing something involving me being unconscious, something other people were participating in. And tomorrow night, it would happen again, whatever same structure meant. I forced myself to breathe slowly, evenly, because beside me lay the man orchestrating my collapse. Devon shifted in his sleep, his arms sliding across my waist like it always did. Once, that gesture felt safe. Now it felt like a restraint, a warning, a hand holding me in place until the darkness swallowed me again. When he eventually drifted into deep sleep, I carefully slid out from under his arm. My feet touched the cold hardwood floor. I stood there in the dark, listening to his soft, steady breathing, reminding myself I still had choices. Not many, but some. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak in the walls. I walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, watching the droplets cling to my skin. The woman in the mirror looked unfamiliar, eyes too wide, jaw too tight. Fear had hollowed her out, but something else had taken root too. Determination, rage, survival. Tomorrow night would be another scheduled event. I whispered the word in my mind, because I still couldn't say anything more specific without shaking. And if I didn't gather evidence before it happened again, I might not survive it. Or worse, I might survive it without knowing again, waking up with another bruise, another memory gap, another smile from the man who made sure I never remembered. I went back to bed, slipping under the covers, repositioning myself exactly how he'd left me, because if he sensed anything off anything, he'd adjust. He always adjusted. Morning came too quickly. Devon woke cheerful, like he hadn't sold pieces of my body to strangers. "Sleep okay?" he asked, brushing my hair aside as he set coffee in front of me. "You were out cold again." The lie sat on my tongue like acid. "Yeah," I whispered. "Really deeply." "Good," he said, kissing my cheek. "You needed it." I forced myself to sip coffee, forced myself to smile back, forced myself through another day of teaching while my thoughts buzzed like static. At lunch, I hid in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my hands cramped. I needed something that could record him. Something hidden, something secure, something he couldn't manipulate. When the final bell rang, I drove straight to Best Buy. I walked the aisles with my heart pounding, scanning for something small, something discreet. The security cameras were too big, the nanny cams too obvious. But then I saw them. Micro cameras, no larger than a thumb joint, disguised as USB chargers or motion sensors. Perfect. I bought two, paying in cash because my instincts screamed that Devon checked everything. The entire drive home, my stomach twisted as if something horrible sat in the back seat with me. I imagined Devon's face if he found the cameras. I imagined his voice changing, no longer smooth, no longer soft. I imagined what he might do, but I couldn't let fear win. Fear was what kept me asleep for 7 months. Fear was what let him drug me. Fear was what let him destroy pieces of me without my knowledge. Not anymore. When I pulled into the driveway, I swallowed the panic rising in my throat. I had to act like everything was normal, like I wasn't planning to catch him, like I wasn't about to expose the monster sleeping beside me. Devon greeted me at the door, kissing my temple. "Traffic okay?" "Yeah," I said lightly, holding the shopping bag behind me. Stopped for a snack. He didn't question it. He never questioned anything that made me seem harmless. That night, he cooked pasta and poured wine, humming as he stirred the sauce. I watched him move around the kitchen with practiced ease. He looked like the kind of man who built a safe, quiet life. And maybe that was the scariest part, that the monster wasn't snarling or violent or obvious. He was patient, calculated, charming. After dinner, he went for his nightly run. He always ran at the same time, always took the same route. Predictability might have been his greatest strength, but it was also his greatest weakness. The moment the door clicked shut, I acted. I ran to the bedroom, grabbed the first camera, and mounted it inside the bookshelf, angled perfectly toward the nightstand, the bed, and the place where he always handed me the pill. My hands trembled as I adjusted it, fear and adrenaline mixing inside me until I thought I might collapse. Then I hurried downstairs, opened the basement door, and felt a rush of cold air spill into the hallway. I hated this basement. Even before I knew the truth, something about it felt wrong, like the house itself shuddered around it. I forced myself down the stairs, gripping the railing so tightly my knuckles turned white. I reached the small vent on the far wall, unscrewed the cover with tools from Devon's workbench, and tucked the second camera inside. The view captured nearly the entire basement, enough to catch anyone down there, enough to catch him, enough to finally see what he'd been doing to me. When the camera light blinked online and the feed connected to the secure cloud account I'd created that afternoon, something inside me loosened. Not safety, not hope, but a tiny sliver of power, something I hadn't felt in months. I screwed the vent cover back on and hurried upstairs just as I heard the front door open. Devon walked in, sweat-darkened t-shirt clinging to his chest, smiling like he was proud of himself for staying active. "Feel good," he said, stretching. "Quick shower?" "Yeah," I replied, keeping my voice calm, keeping my breathing normal. He kissed my forehead on his way to the bathroom. The moment the water turned on, I pulled out my phone and checked the feeds. Both cameras were working, both streaming, both recording. After months of darkness, I finally had eyes. I slid into bed before he finished showering, heart hammering against my ribs so hard I was scared it would bruise me from the inside. When he climbed into bed beside me and handed me the pill, I played my part, sweet, tired, oblivious. I pretended to swallow. I let him check my mouth. I let him kiss me goodnight. And when the lights went off, I stared into the darkness, knowing that tomorrow, for the first time, I might finally see the truth. I just didn't know yet that the truth would be worse than anything I had ever imagined. I lay perfectly still after Devon kissed my forehead and whispered his usual, "Sleep well, babe." The words hit me differently now, once a comfort, now a warning. I slowed my breathing, let my eyelids droop, and pretended to drift into the drug-induced fog he expected. Inside, though, every nerve pulsed with electricity. I felt like a hunted animal forced to lie quietly while the predator circled. The house creaked in the familiar ways, wood settling, pipes humming, but tonight each sound felt amplified, like the walls themselves were holding their breath with me. Minutes stretched, like hours. My throat tightened as I waited for the familiar wave of drowsiness the pill normally triggered. But since I hadn't swallowed it, my mind stayed sharp, too sharp. My heart thudded against the mattress. I worried the accelerations in my breathing would expose me. At 11:14 p.m., the door opened. Just a faint click, but enough to freeze my blood. Devon's silhouette appeared in the dim hallway light. He stepped inside, moving quietly, deliberately, quietly. He approached the bed with the slow, measured steps of someone checking prey, not checking a wife. I kept my breathing steady, counting intervals in my mind, fighting the trembling in my fingers. He leaned over me. I felt his breath on my cheek, warm, familiar, horrifying. "Good," he whispered after a long moment. The single word slid over my skin like ice. Then he straightened and left the room. I didn't dare move. Not yet. I counted to 60 slowly, then again. When I reached 200, I finally cracked my eyes open. The hallway was empty, but downstairs I heard the faintest rhythm, the soft thud of Devon's footsteps. I forced my limbs to move, inch by inch, sliding to the edge of the mattress. My body felt heavy from fear alone, as if the phantom weight of the drugs lingered even though I hadn't taken them. I padded across the room, careful not to disturb the floorboards. I opened the bedroom door just wide enough to peer out. The house was dark, but not silent. A soft scraping echoed faintly from below metal against wood. Then a low murmur, Devon's voice, talking to someone. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from gasping. He wasn't alone. He wasn't on a call. Someone was inside my house at nearly midnight, moving with him, waiting with him, participating. My skin crawled. I wanted to run outside barefoot, screaming for help, But I knew if I made a sound, any sound, he'd know I wasn't unconscious. And I didn't yet know what Devon would do if he discovered the illusion had shattered. My survival depended entirely on his belief that I was helpless. I backed away from the door and returned to the bed on shaking legs. I didn't lie down immediately. I crouched by the nightstand, my fingertips brushing the hidden micro-camera lens. It was recording. I reminded myself of that. Everything he did tonight was being captured, even if I couldn't see it yet. Slowly, I slid back under the covers, leaving my eyes barely open, enough to see shadows, enough to react if I had to, but not enough to reveal I was awake. The house grew eerily quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that presses on your chest, demanding breath you can't give. Then, at exactly 2:07 a.m., I heard the basement door opening, a soft creak, followed by footsteps descending the wooden stairs. 1 set, 2 sets. My stomach twisted violently. The air felt heavier, colder, like dread itself had seeped into the room. I squeezed my eyes shut fully this time, because I knew if I kept them open, the terror would make them visibly dart. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Time stretched into something unbearable. And then I heard something I had never heard before. Laughter. Devon's laughter. But not the warm, soft laugh from our dates, our dinners, our lazy Sundays. This laughter was low, secretive. The laugh of a man who believed he was untouchable. A man who knew his wife was upstairs, unconscious, silent, obedient. A prop in his twisted little world. Heat surged up my neck as tears burned behind my eyelids. I hated myself for shaking, for being scared, for being trapped in a body he'd trained into compliance. I counted breaths to keep myself still. I focused on staying alive. At 3:18 a.m., I heard the basement door again. Devon's footsteps moved through the kitchen, down the hallway, and toward the bedroom. I forced my body into stillness, letting my limbs go loose and slack, letting my chest rise and fall as if I were deeply, heavily drugged. The doorknob turned, the door opened. Devon walked in. He approached the bed slowly, watching me. I kept breathing evenly, though every exhale trembled at the edges. He leaned close, so close I could feel the heat of his chest over mine. He touched my cheek. His thumb traced a slow line just below my eye, like he was admiring something fragile. "Perfect," he whispered. "Perfect." The word wrapped around every bruise, every lost memory, every stolen night. Perfect for what? Perfect because I didn't fight? Perfect because I didn't remember? Perfect because he could do anything he wanted to me while I slept? It took every fiber of willpower not to recoil. He eventually pulled away and crawled into bed beside me. His breathing slowed, evened out, deepened. He fell asleep. I did not. I couldn't. I stared at the ceiling, the darkness pressing on me, the weight of what I'd witnessed, what I barely understood, drowning every thought. But beneath the terror, something else grew. Something cold, hard, sharp. Tomorrow, the cameras would reveal the truth. Tomorrow, I'd finally know exactly what he'd been doing to me. And whatever it was, I knew it would change everything forever. Morning came like a slap. The sun rose, bright and indifferent, slicing through the blinds in narrow, golden lines that felt almost insulting. How could the world be so normal when everything inside me felt poisoned? Devon didn't notice. Of course he didn't. He stretched, kissed my forehead, and walked into the bathroom with a casual, "I'll make breakfast in a minute." As soon as the water turned on, I sat up so fast my vision blurred. My hands shook violently as I reached for my phone. I almost dropped it. I opened the camera app, my hidden cloud feed, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. 2 screens, 2 rooms, 2 angles capturing the truth I'd been desperate for and terrified of. I pressed play on the first video. Footage from the bedroom. The timestamp read 11:14 p.m. the moment he came to check if I was unconscious. My stomach clenched as I watched myself lying there limp and compliant, my fake sleep apparently good enough to fool him. He leaned over my face, studying me like a specimen. I saw his eyes cold, calculating, void of the affection he'd always imitated so well. Then he walked out. The video switched to him in the hallway, then downstairs, then toward the basement. I rewound, playing every second twice, as if I needed to confirm this was real. But it was the next file that made my breath stop entirely. Basement footage. The camera angle captured everything dim, lighting, shadows stretching across the concrete floor, the exposed beams above. and Devon. Devon standing in the center of the room, scrolling through his phone, pacing. He kept checking the stairs like he was waiting for something, for someone. I felt cold sweat bead down my back. At 11:49 p.m., the basement door opened again. A man entered, a stranger, broad shoulders, dark jacket, hood pulled low. My heart squeezed so tight it hurt. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't cautious. He walked into my home, the home Devon and I built together, painted together, laughed inside like he belonged there. And Devon greeted him, like a friend, like a business partner. Not a word passed between them at first. Then they spoke too quietly for the camera's mic to pick up. Devon held something out. A phone. The man looked, nodded, reached into his pocket. My stomach dropped. He pulled out cash, actual folded bills, and handed them to my husband. Devon didn't hesitate, didn't decline, didn't seem conflicted. He took the money and pocketed it. My ears rang. I could barely hear my own breathing. I replayed the moment 5 times, as if repetition would make it less real. It didn't. Each replay made it worse. Because with each viewing, I saw details I missed. The faint grin on Devon's face, the stranger's calmness, the unmistakable familiarity of this exchange. This wasn't new. This wasn't spontaneous. This was routine, a system, a pattern. And I was the product. My body felt like fire and ice at the same time. I forced myself to keep watching. Devon walked to the side of the basement, reached into a plastic container, and pulled out what looked like a laptop stand, unfolding it mechanically. He placed his phone on it, tilted the screen toward the stranger. I paused the footage so abruptly the video glitched. I stared at the image frozen on-screen, Devon showing something to this man, and the man leaned forward, studying it. My blood turned to ash. I didn't want to press play again. I didn't want to know. I already knew. Somewhere deep inside, I'd known for months. But I forced myself. The footage continued. The man nodded, gave a thumbs up, and spoke again. Devon gestured upward toward the bedroom. Toward me. The man laughed. A short, ugly laugh. My heart slammed against my ribs. I felt sick. I felt dirty. I felt like the walls were collapsing around me. I skipped ahead in the footage, desperate but terrified. I wish I hadn't. At 2:13 a.m., I watched Devon walk up the stairs, check on me, then return to the basement. He made a small hand motion, like signaling, and the stranger climbed a few steps upward. Not all the way, not enough to be seen from the hallway, but enough to look up toward the darkened space where our bedroom sat, toward where my unconscious body lay. He was inspecting me from afar, deciding something, approving something. My vision doubled. I blinked hard, gripping the counter for support. The stranger turned to Devon. More cash, more conversation, more nods. I scrubbed a shaking hand across my forehead. My brain refused to accept what I was seeing, but the footage kept forcing reality down my throat. My husband wasn't just drugging me. He wasn't just controlling me. He wasn't just taking advantage of my unconsciousness. He was monetizing it, selling access, selling imagery, selling whatever else I hadn't yet seen. I felt the scream rising in my chest so violently I slammed my hand over my mouth. I couldn't make a sound. If he heard anything from the shower, if he came out early, if he saw me watching, I'd die. I knew that, with horrifying clarity. Something inside me broke, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet snap, like the last support beam giving way. I forced myself to switch back to bedroom footage. Devon returning at 3:18 a.m., leaning over my body, touching my face, whispering, "Perfect." I replayed it 6 times. Each time, the word became something filthier, something evil, something unforgivable. My entire body shook uncontrollably. I wasn't imagining anything. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't losing myself. He had taken me apart piece by piece until I couldn't trust my own mind because he needed me unaware. Silent, easy, marketable. I finally shut the phone off when I heard the bathroom door open. I shoved it under the pillow, sucked in a breath, and wiped my face with trembling hands. Devon walked out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist, smiling like it was any other day. "Breakfast?" he asked. I nodded. I don't know how. I don't know how my neck still worked, how my lips moved, how my legs held me upright. Because in my head, one sentence repeated on a loop, loud as a siren and sharp as a knife. He's been selling me. And now that I knew the truth, now that I had seen it with my own eyes, I knew there was no going back. Not to who I was, not to who he pretended to be, not to the life I thought we had. Everything had changed, and the war for my survival had officially begun. I don't remember walking to the kitchen. One moment I was in the bedroom staring at Devon's smile, and the next I was gripping the edge of the counter, trying not to collapse. My legs shook so violently I thought they might give out entirely. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't breathe in this house another second. Every object felt tainted: the table we ate dinner at, the couch we watched movies on, the bed he drugged me in. Everything felt like a crime scene. I moved on autopilot. My mind fragmented into two parts, the part screaming in terror and the part forcing my body to keep moving. I went back upstairs and grabbed a duffel bag from the closet. My hands trembled as I stuffed in clothes without seeing what they were. Jeans, sweaters, underwear. I didn't care. I just needed out. My passport, my social security card, my birth certificate. Anything I might need if Devon tried to trap me financially or legally. I kept hearing his voice from the footage, calm, transactional, discussing my unconscious body like it was a product he could package and sell. Something inside me recoiled so hard I almost threw up again. I forced myself to look around the bedroom one last time, memorizing the space not because I loved it, but because I needed to remember what it cost me to survive it. The shower water shut off. My heart stopped. I grabbed the duffel bag and sprinted down the stairs as quietly as I could. I didn't even put on shoes. I didn't care. I needed to get out before he saw me, before he asked why I was shaking, before he sensed anything off. I reached the front door, hands shaking so violently I almost dropped the keys. When I finally pulled it open and stepped into the morning air, I couldn't breathe. It felt like breaking the surface after drowning for months. I ran to my car, threw the bag into the passenger seat, got in, and locked the doors. Only then did I allow myself a single sound, a gasping, broken sob that tore from my chest. My phone buzzed. My heart jumped, but it was just a calendar alert. I laughed hysterically, punching the steering wheel as the tears came hard and fast. I almost didn't recognize my own voice. It sounded feral, wild, but I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. Not yet. I started the car and drove. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't check if he was watching from the window. I didn't care. Every mile I put between myself and that house felt like reclaiming oxygen. I drove until my shaking started to calm, until my vision stopped blurring. I didn't stop until I reached a public parking lot near Midtown, somewhere Devon wouldn't expect me to go. Somewhere crowded, loud, full of witnesses. Somewhere safe. I pulled into a space and grabbed my phone. My finger hovered over one name, Kesha, my best friend, the only person who would believe me without hesitation. But even then, I hesitated. How could I explain what I'd just seen? How could I put into words the kind of horror that didn't feel real, even when it was playing right in front of me? I pressed call anyway. She picked up on the first ring. Jas, you okay? No greeting, no warm-up, just instinct. She knew something was wrong immediately. My voice broke. Kesha, I need you, please. I need you right now. Where are you? I told her. She didn't ask questions. Stay there. I'm on my way. She hung up, and for a moment I simply sat there, gripping the steering wheel, repeating one sentence in my head like a mantra. He can't hurt me here. He can't hurt me here. He can't hurt me here. It wasn't entirely true, but I needed it to feel true. Kesha arrived faster than I expected. She saw me through the windshield, her expression shifting from concern to alarm. She opened my door before I could get out. Jesus, Jasmine, what happened? I couldn't speak, not at first. She pulled me into her arms, and for a moment I collapsed into the familiarity of her warmth, feeling like a child seeking shelter from a storm. When I finally found my voice, it cracked in half. He's been drugging me, I whispered. For months, 7 months, Kesha froze. What? I told her everything. The footage, the strangers, the money, the basement, the pills. Every detail tasted like acid leaving my mouth, but I forced myself to keep going, because if I stopped, if I let the horror swallow me, I didn't know if I'd come back. Kesha's face changed with every sentence. Shock, disbelief, fury, disgust, heartbreak. When I finished, her hands were shaking almost as badly as mine. We're calling the police, she said firmly. Right now. What if they don't believe me? My voice cracked. What if they think I'm crazy? Jas, she said, gripping my shoulders. You have evidence. You have recordings. You have timestamps. They will believe you, and if they don't, I will make them believe you. Her certainty steadied me in a way nothing else could. She guided me back into the car, closed the door gently, and climbed into the driver's seat. "We're going to my apartment," she said. "You're not going anywhere alone." I nodded. I didn't trust myself to drive anyway. During the ride, I clutched my phone like a lifeline. Everything depended on what was inside it. Everything depended on the evidence I'd gathered. Evidence Devon didn't know existed. Evidence he would destroy me for, if he ever discovered it. When we reached her apartment, she locked the door behind us, then locked the chain, then locked the extra deadbolt she'd installed years ago after a break-in on her floor. I didn't realize how badly I needed those locks until I heard them click. Kesha sat me on her couch, handed me water, and then picked up her phone. "I'm calling the police," she repeated. She dialed. I listened numbly as she explained. "My friend needs to report a major crime. A violent crime. Multiple crimes, actually." She didn't mention details over the phone, just enough to get them to send officers. "Yes, detectives too. Yes, she's safe now. No, the suspect is not here." When she hung up, she knelt in front of me, her eyes soft but fierce. "You're not alone," she said. "Not anymore." For the first time since I pressed play on those videos, I felt something other than terror. Not peace, not hope, but possibility. A door opening, just a crack. Enough for light to slip through. Enough to remind me that there was still a path forward, even if it terrified me. When the knock on the door finally came, 2 officers and a female detective, I knew this was the moment everything in my life split into, before and after. And as I stood up to open the door, my hands still trembling, one thought echoed louder than the rest. He will never touch me again. Not now. Not ever. The knock on Kesha's door felt like a hammer to my chest. One of the officers said my name, calm and professional, but my pulse still spiked so fast I felt dizzy. Kesha squeezed my hand before opening the door, like she knew I needed grounding. 2 uniformed officers stepped in first, followed by a woman in plain clothes, Detective Sarah Martinez. She had sharp, steady eyes that scanned me not with suspicion, but with a kind of focused concern. "Jasmine?" she said gently. I nodded, though my throat felt numb. "We understand you have evidence of a crime. Multiple crimes." The word crimes made my stomach twist. Crimes. Not misunderstandings, not paranoia. Crimes. For a moment, I wanted to shrink into myself, curl into the couch, pretend all of this wasn't real. But then I remembered the footage, Devon's voice, the stranger's money, the laughter, the word perfect, and the fear inside me hardened into something colder. I sat up straighter. "Yes," I whispered. "I do." Detective Martinez sat across from me, flipping open a notebook. "You're safe here," she said. "You can take your time. Start wherever you need." I didn't take my time. Once the first word left my mouth, the rest followed like floodwater. I told her everything. The pills, the memory gaps, the vapes I woke up to, the clothes that changed in the night, the bruises, the call in the hallway, the trip downstairs, the men in the basement. My voice shook but didn't break. I was too far past breaking to fear it anymore. When I described the footage, Martinez leaned forward. "You have video?" "Yes. On my phone." She held out her hand. "May I?" A ripple of panic shot through me, not because I didn't trust her, but because the weight of what she was about to see felt suffocating. I unlocked my phone and handed it over. She watched the first clip in silence. Not a single blink, not a single sound, just intense, unwavering focus. When the footage shifted to the basement and Devon accepted cash, she stiffened. When the stranger looked up toward the stairs toward me, her jaw clenched. When the timestamp revealed how long this had been happening, she took a slow breath like she was forcing down her reaction to stay professional. After several minutes, she stopped the video and set my phone on the table carefully, almost gently, like it was an injured animal she didn't want to harm further. "Jasmine," she said quietly, "everything you're describing and everything I just saw is extremely serious. What your husband did is a felony on multiple counts, and more importantly, you are in danger." My mind flashed back to the house, to Devon standing over me while I pretended to sleep, to the stranger climbing the basement stairs. A shiver ran through me. "He doesn't know I left," I whispered. "He doesn't know I know anything." "Good," she said. "And we're going to keep it that way." She spoke with such certainty, it almost steadied me. Almost. One of the officers began typing notes. The other asked questions, dates, symptoms, conversations trying to piece together a timeline. Detective Martinez walked me through next steps, explaining everything clearly, calmly, methodically. A protective order, a forensic review of the footage, a search warrant, a plan to arrest him safely. My pulse hammered. Arrest? Absolutely, she said. This isn't something we talk through. What he did wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern, intentional, coordinated, and he involved other individuals. Hearing her say it out loud, with confidence, made my chest tighten. Validation hurt almost as much as disbelief. I nodded slowly, like my body was trying to get used to gravity again. What? What do I do now? First, we get you to the station, Martinez said. You'll give a full statement. Then we fast-track the protective order. We'll have officers keep eyes on your residence until we have the warrant. He'd be home by now, I whispered. He probably thinks I went to work. Then he'll be exactly where we need him to be when the time comes. Her voice didn't waver. Mine did. What if he comes looking for me? He won't get near you, she said firmly. Not tonight. Not ever again if we can help it. Kesha rubbed my back gently. I'll go with you. You won't do any of this alone. I nodded, though part of me floated above the room, detached, watching everything from a distance. Shock did that. Trauma did that. I wasn't Jasmine, the teacher, the wife, the friend. I was Jasmine, the evidence. Jasmine, the victim. Jasmine, the survivor. At the station, everything moved fast, too fast, and not fast enough at the same time. They brought me into a small interview room, offered water, tissues. Detective Martinez recorded my official statement. I told the story again, more details, this time more precise, more devastating. I watched her pen scratch across the page, capturing every word, every pain, every betrayal. For hours, I relived everything I had spent months trying to forget. But the worst part wasn't the memory gaps or the bruises or the footage. The worst part was hearing myself say it all out loud and realizing how carefully he had constructed my silence, my compliance, my unknowing participation in my own nightmare. Twice, I broke down. Twice. Martinez paused the recording and let me cry without rushing me. You're doing incredibly well, she said softly. I know this is hard, but you're strong. You're here. That matters. It did, more than I realized. By the time the statement was complete, the sun had started to set. The officers filed out, leaving me alone with Martinez. She handed me a packet of documents. Your emergency protective order, she said. Effective immediately. He cannot contact you, approach you, or attempt to find you. Violation results in arrest. My throat tightened. And the warrant? We're drafting it now. Once a judge signs it, we'll execute it. You won't need to be there. Will he know it was me? She gave me a look full of empathy but also truth. Yes, but by the time he learns that, he'll be in handcuffs. The idea of Devin, my husband, being arrested didn't feel real. None of this felt real. But the alternative, going back to him, letting him drug me, letting him sell me, wasn't life. It was erasure. When they drove me back to Kesha's apartment, exhaustion hit me like a brick wall. I collapsed onto her couch, burying my face in my hands. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt the smallest whisper of relief. Not safety, not closure, but the first step toward reclaiming something he had stolen from me the moment he put that first pill in my hand. My voice, my reality, my life. And as I drifted into a fitful sleep, one truth settled deep inside my bones, unshakable and sharp. Devin's freedom was ending, and mine was just beginning. I didn't sleep long, maybe an hour or two at most. But when I woke up on Kesha's couch, the world felt different, like a glass wall had been placed between me and everything I once recognized. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. For a split second, terror seized me. Devin. But it wasn't him. It was Detective Martinez. We have the warrant. 5 words that made my lungs seize and expand at the same time. Fear and relief, crashing violently into each other. I sat up, wiping the sleep from my eyes. Kesha rushed in from the kitchen, her face tight with concern. What is it? I handed her the phone with shaking fingers. They're going to the house. My voice trembled, not just from shock but from something else, something darker. The idea of them tearing apart the place where I once felt safe. It should have comforted me. Instead, it made me want to scream. Because I didn't want the police to find secrets. I wanted them to find the whole truth. And a part of me feared the truth might be even worse than what I'd already seen. Martinez told me to stay where I was. Officers were headed to Devon's workplace as well. He won't come near you, she reassured. We'll call when it's done. But waiting felt like torture. Every minute stretched like a slow, suffocating countdown. I paced the living room, this small, safe apartment that suddenly felt like a bunker. A place to hide, a place to breathe, a place I never asked for, but desperately needed. It was 2 agonizing hours before Martinez called again. When I answered, her voice was steady, professional, but there was something beneath it, something grim. Jasmine, she said. We executed the search warrant. We found a lot. My knees buckled. I sank onto the couch as she continued. Multiple devices, hard drives, encrypted folders. We're sending everything to cyber forensics, and we found a locked drawer in his office. My blood froze. I knew, instantly, what that meant. Inside were external drives, hundreds of files. My throat tightened to the point of choking. I tasted bile at the back of my tongue. Were they of me? Yes, she said gently. Mostly you. Some other content that may help us identify additional victims or participants. We're processing everything carefully. Additional victims. The words hit me so hard my vision blurred. Had he done this before? To someone else? With someone else? Who else had he hurt? I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling it rise and fall too quickly. Martinez continued. He was arrested at his office. He resisted, but no one was injured. Resisted. Of course he did. Devon didn't like losing control. He didn't like being challenged. The idea of him being taken to the ground, handcuffed in front of his coworkers, felt surreal, like watching a movie of someone else's life. Not mine. Martinez assured me he was in holding and couldn't contact me. Not legally, not physically, not for a long time. But the fear didn't leave. It clung to me like wet fabric, suffocating and cold. I spent that night at Kesha's, curled under a blanket on her couch. I couldn't turn my brain off, couldn't stop replaying the footage, couldn't stop imagining what else they would find. When my phone finally buzzed again the next morning, I almost didn't look, but I did. Unknown number. My stomach turned. I answered. And the moment I heard his voice, I went completely still. Jasmine. Devon's tone was raw, shaky, so unlike the confident, manipulative voice I'd known. Baby, please, listen to me. Baby. The word made my blood boil. Don't call me that, I whispered. You're not allowed to contact me. I know, he said, voice cracking. But I need to explain. A laugh burst out of me, sharp, bitter, broken. Explain? I repeated. Explain what? The drugs? The videos? The men you brought into our home? It wasn't like that, he insisted, desperation creeping in. I never touched you. I never hurt you physically. I needed money. I got in deep with someone. I didn't think. You didn't think? I cut him off, voice trembling with rage. You drugged me for 7 months. You sold access to my unconscious body. You filmed me without consent. You stole my memory, my safety, my autonomy. You did hurt me, Devon. Silence stretched between us like a blade. Then he whispered, I love you. Something inside me snapped so cleanly it almost sounded like a real noise. No, I said. You don't love me. You loved control. You loved power. You loved owning me. He started to speak again, but I hung up, blocked the number, deleted the call, then broke down so violently my whole body curled in on itself. Kesha held me, whispering over and over, You're safe now. He can't touch you again. I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her. But trauma has its own gravity. It pulls you back into fear, even when you're standing in the light. Over the next week, everything moved at a brutal pace. Court dates, victim interviews, forensic updates. Martinez became the face of justice for me. Calm, relentless, methodical. She kept me informed without overwhelming me. She explained every charge Devon was facing, every step the prosecution would take. But I was unraveling quietly. Nights were the worst. I woke up gasping, convinced someone was in the room. I slept with lights on. I checked locks twice, then 3 times, then again. I couldn't be touched, not even by Kesha's comforting hand on my shoulder without flinching. Eventually, Martinez recommended a trauma specialist, Dr. Williams. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to talk about what happened. I'd already talked enough. But the nightmares got worse. The guilt got worse. The fear got worse. So I went. And the first thing Dr. Williams said to me was, "None of this was your fault." I didn't believe her, not at first. But she said it again and again, until the words started sinking into the cracks inside me. Slowly, painfully, she helped me understand what had happened. The grooming, the manipulation, the psychological conditioning, the drugging. "You survived something designed to destroy your sense of reality," she said. "The fact that you're here at all is proof of your strength." Strength. I didn't feel strong, but I kept showing up, week after week, learning about trauma responses, untangling memory, unpacking guilt, and through it all, the legal process moved forward. More evidence surfaced: messages, crypto transactions, files Devin tried to delete but failed. The prosecution built a case so solid even his lawyer couldn't spin it. He was indicted on multiple felony charges. He pled not guilty. Of course he did. Men like Devin never saw themselves as villains. But the evidence was undeniable. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like hope. Small and fragile, but real. I wasn't free yet, but I was no longer trapped. And as the trial date approached, one thought echoed louder than my fear, louder than my shame, louder than the memories that haunted my sleep. He is going to pay for what he did, and I am going to live. The courthouse smelled like old paper and cold stone, the kind of place where time didn't move forward so much as circle endlessly. My heels clicked against the floor as I followed Detective Martinez and the prosecutor toward the courtroom. Each step felt heavy, like wading through the last 7 months of my life. Every breath tasted metallic, every shadow felt too close. Today wasn't just another hearing. Today was the day Devin's trial, the day a jury would hear what he did, the day I would stand in front of the man who drugged me, sold me, and convinced me I was losing my mind. The doors opened with a low groan. The sound echoed down my spine. Devin was already there, sitting beside his lawyer, in a gray suit I bought him last Christmas. His hair neatly combed, his posture straight, his expression a carefully crafted mixture of sadness and confusion, like he was the one betrayed, like he was the injured party. My stomach twisted violently. For a moment, the room spun. Kesha squeezed my hand so tightly my bones almost ached. "You don't have to look at him," she whispered. But I did. I forced myself to meet his eyes. And when I did, something in me shifted. Finally, I didn't see the man I married. I didn't see my husband. I saw the truth. A predator who hid behind affection. A manipulator who disguised cruelty as care. A man who groomed me into trusting him more than I trusted myself. A man who tried to erase me and failed. The proceedings began. Opening arguments, evidence submission, expert testimonies. My heart hammered against my sternum as the prosecutor played the first video clip, the hidden camera footage from our bedroom. Devin leaned forward, jaw tight, trying but failing to stay expressionless. The courtroom's air thickened as my body appeared on screen. Limp, unconscious, arranged like a prop. Gasps broke out in the gallery. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another said, "She's out cold." And then the basement footage played. Devin accepting cash, the stranger examining the screen, the timestamp flashing over and over. 7 months of documentation. The jury's faces changed: disgust, shock, horror. His lawyer scrambled to object, claiming invasion of privacy, claiming manipulation, claiming the footage lacked context. But the judge overruled every objection. Martinez's voice rang in my mind. "He can't hide now. Not from this." When they called me to the stand, my legs turned to water, but I walked anyway. My palms sweated against the wood railing. I took a shaky breath as I swore to tell the truth. And I did. I told them about the pills, the memory lapses, the bruises. About the night I pretended to swallow the pill and watched him leave the room. About the laughter from the basement. About the moment I realized my husband wasn't protecting me, he was preparing me. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurting, but because the pain had calcified into something sharper than tears. Devin's lawyer tried to twist everything. "Isn't it possible you misinterpreted? Weren't you under stress from your job? Are you sure you didn't consent to being filmed?" That was the moment something inside me snapped. "Consent?" I repeated, my voice low but firm. "Ask yourself this. Does an unconscious woman consent to anything? Does a woman drugged every night have autonomy? Does a wife waking up bruised and disoriented sound like someone who agreed to be recorded? The room went silent. Even the clerk stopped typing. The lawyer swallowed. No further questions. When I stepped down from the stand, my legs shook so hard I thought I'd fall. But I didn't. I walked back to my seat, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt tall. Not healed, not whole, but tall. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. 6 long, suffocating hours. Kesha held my hand. My mother prayed softly. Detective Martinez sat nearby, arms crossed, watching the hallway like she could shield me from the world. When the jury finally filed back in, my pulse thudded in my ears. "We find the defendant." The foreman paused. I swear the entire room held its breath. "Guilty on all counts." The words washed over me like ice and fire at the same time. Guilty. He was guilty. Devon's face collapsed not into remorse, but into rage. True rage. The mask fell, and beneath it was everything I had feared, everything I had escaped. The judge sentenced him to 18 years in prison, mandatory registry. No possibility of early release for at least 12. A lifetime marked, a lifetime exposed. The same way he exposed me, but now the exposure was his to endure. When they cuffed him, he twisted in his seat, looking for me. "Jasmine!" he shouted. "Jasmine, please, I love you." A cold calm settled over me. "No," I said quietly. "You don't," he kept yelling as they dragged him out. But I didn't hear him anymore. His voice no longer had a place inside me. After that day, everything blurred. Papers, court summaries, victim restitution. But slowly, like a wound knitting back together in uneven stitches, life began to move. I finalized the divorce, sold the house, donated most of Devon's belongings. I took the settlement money and gave nearly all of it to organizations supporting victims of exploitation and assault because I refused to let his money stain my future. And I left Atlanta. Too many ghosts, too many shadows, too much of him in every street and corner. I moved to Charlotte, found a small apartment with sunlit windows and a quiet balcony. Took a job at a new school. My students didn't know my story. My coworkers didn't know either. But I did, and that was enough. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some nights I still woke up gasping. Some mornings I still checked every lock twice. Some moments I still wondered how I didn't see the monster behind the man I loved. But Dr. Williams taught me something I repeat like a prayer. Survival is not weakness, it's wisdom. And I survived, not by accident, not by luck, but because I chose to stay awake in a house designed to keep me unconscious. Because I chose to run, because I chose to tell the truth, because I chose myself. One evening, months later, I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset stain the sky pink and gold. I closed my eyes and breathed a long, full breath that didn't taste like fear. For the first time in a long time, the world felt possible again. Not safe, but possible. And that was enough. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever fully forget. But I'm here. I'm alive. I'm awake. And that is everything he tried to take.